lovelies, it is time for another book outlet haul, so stay tuned. So I got 5 boxes of book outlet books today, and unfortunately, I don't know what happened. When I received them, they were under a covered, like my covered patio, but the boxes, yeah. One of the boxes literally came like this, with this part not even attached anymore. They're all wet and damaged. I was not intending on filming this haul today. No makeup, no hair done, none of that. But I needed to open these boxes and pull all the books out because literally every single box was just falling apart. It almost seemed like, instead of being on a mail truck or whatever, that they were like in the back of a pickup truck getting soaked. It was, yeah. So, doing a spur of the moment haul video. Just so I could get these books out of the boxes. There are some that got quite wet. Most of them, however, seem to be okay. So let me grab them and we'll get started. Okay, so I have them all here, and here. I think there's 33 of them. And we're gonna start with the 2 that are in the worst shape. So the first one is Just Our Luck by Julia Walton, and let me show you. So for one, I had to change the dust jacket up so I could try to flatten this out, but like this thing is wet all the way through, like the size of my hand. It doesn't show as much back here, but it's wet like all the way up. And I don't know how well you can see it, but yeah, it's very, very, very wet. So right now I had the dust jacket kind of on backwards so that this could flatten out. And then I don't have anything on that side so that it can dry out a little bit more. This says this says Leo Ermo is not a fighter. He knits, takes photographs, and follows his Greek grandmother's rules for life as best he can. The first rule, bad luck follows lies. But Leo's anxiety just caused a fight at school, and though he didn't lie, he wasn't exactly honest about how it all went down, how he went down. Now Leo's father insists his son needs to man up, and he's sure a hardcore military self-defense class will do the trick. Enter Evie Peros, whose family supposedly cursed Leo's with bad luck. Evie is working at the gym when Leo arrives, desperate to take anything other than self-defense. Quick on her feet, Evie cuts him a deal. She'll secretly enroll him in hot yoga instead, for a price. But what could the ruthless, forbidden Evie Peros want from Leo? Sharp as a needle, humorous, and compulsively readable, Just Our Luck is the story of a boy who, after a lifetime of bad luck, takes charge of his own destiny. And I think it sounds so stinking cute. So I'm going to set that one off to the side so it doesn't get mixed in with the rest of the books, because it needs to air out. Okay, the other one that got pretty bad wet is Love and Olives by Jenna Evans Welch. And I don't know how well you can see it, but the whole spine got soaked. It's actually starting to like peel the paper away, and it's real thick here. Like, you can squish it. So I'm hoping that it'll dry out. I keep going like this to help ensure that the pages don't stick, but you can see like that, it's soaked through, and I'm really just hoping it doesn't fall apart. But yeah, these are the 2 that are in the worst shape. Let's see. This one is part of the Love and Gelato series. This says, Santorini felt like an island holding its breath, as if it were keeping in a secret. Liv Varanakis doesn't like to think about her father much, which makes sense. He fled to Greece when she was only 8, leaving her with just a few painful memories of their shared love for the lost city of Atlantis. So when teenage Liv suddenly receives a postcard from her father who asks if she will fly out to Greece to help him with a documentary about his theories on Atlantis, Liv is less than thrilled. When she arrives in gorgeous Santorini, things are just as awkward as she'd imagined. There are so many questions, so many emotions that flood to the surface after seeing her father for the first time in years. Liv doesn't want to get sucked back into her father's world. She also definitely doesn't want Theo, her father's charismatic, so-called protege, to witness her struggle. Even so, she can't help but be charmed by everything Santorini has to offer. The beautiful sunsets, the turquoise water, the sun-drenched villages, and the delicious cuisine. But not everything on the Greek island is as perfect as it seems, because as Liv slowly begins to discover, her father may not have invited her to Greece for Atlantis, but for something much more important. And these can all be read as like standalones, the Love and Gelato series, but characters I think do intertwine, at least in the first 2 that I read. But yeah, they can be read separately. I'm also going to let this one air out as well. So several other of these are a little wavy, but not as bad as those. Okay, so as you can see, like maybe this one is a little bit fluffier on this end than this end because it got wet down here. This is Kisses and Croissants by Anne-Sophie Jothaneau. This looks super cute. This says, Mia Genro has always known she's destined to be a professional ballerina. She's thrilled to be spending a magical summer in France, pursuing her dream. But as she pirouettes into Paris, she realizes it may be a bit more complicated than she hoped. Rivals and impossible instructors nearly push her to the breaking point. And then there's Louis. Devastatingly, distractingly charming Louis. He's eager to show Mia his city, and Mia is more than happy to hop on his Vespa and wrap her arms around him as they pass the gleaming lights of the Eiffel Tower. Mia's summer was supposed to be about ballet, but there's a reason Paris is called the City of Love. Next up, The Girl Least Likely by Katie Lotzenheiser. And I think this book is so pretty. It's just white, but I love the colors. This says, Gretchen has always been more of a least likely than a most likely kind of girl. So how does she somehow find herself living out every trope from her favorite rom-coms? Best friend crush. Why is it suddenly so hard to act normal around her childhood BFF, Samuel? Must be time for a makeover. Black leather pants and some red lipstick are apparently enough to lend Gretchen the bravado to do an impromptu set at a comedy club and catch the eye of the roguish bad boy, Jeremy, the alluring young comic who thinks her name is Sabrina. It might just be the perfect cover. A funny girl alter ego that frees Gretchen to explore who she really is and what she really wants. But as rom-coms have taught her, leading a double life can only last so long. This sounds so cute. Next up is Once Upon a K-Prom by Kat Chow. And, oh, this has a art on the inside. Cute. This says, why did he have to look like the sweet hero straight out of a K-drama? Alina Sue has always felt like the side character in her own life. Constantly overshadowed by her more successful older sisters, her more popular twin brother, and her more outgoing best friend, Alina worries that everyone except her seems to know exactly who they are and what they want. But she is certain about one thing. She has no interest in going to prom. While the rest of the school is giddy over corsages and dresses, to Alina, prom only means 3 things: aching feet, overpriced decorations, and unrealistic expectations. But Alina's life takes on some serious main character K-drama energy when international K-pop superstar Robbie Choi shows up at her house to ask her to that once-in-a-lifetime, according to everyone else, dance. Because the one boy who might be worth all the blisters and hairspray and forced sentimentality, her childhood best friend Robbie, and the one unrealistic expectation that Elena's buried in her heart since the day Robbie moved away. That he would come back and keep the promise they made to each other as kids, to go to prom together. But that was 7 years ago, and with his new K-pop persona, pink hair, and stylish clothes, Robbie is nothing like the sweet, goofy boy she remembers. The boy she shared all her secrets with. The boy who made her feel like she was a part of something special. Besides prom with a guy who comes with hordes of screaming fans, online haters, and relentless paparazzi is the last thing Elena wants, even if she can't stop thinking about Robbie's smile, right? From internationally best-selling author Kat Chow comes a heartwarming love story that brings the glamour and drama of the K-pop world straight to high school. Next is The Beach Trap by Allie Brady. And this says, two best friends torn apart by a life-altering secret. One summer to set the record straight. When 12-year-olds Kat Steiner and Blake O'Neill meet at Camp Chickawa, they have an instant connection. But everything falls apart when they learn they're not just best friends, they're also half-sisters. Confused and betrayed, the girls break off all contact. 15 years later, when their father dies suddenly, Kat and Blake discover he's left them a joint inheritance, the family beach house in Destin, Florida. The two sisters are immediately at odds. Blake, who has recently been demoted from regular nanny to dog nanny, wants to sell the house, while social media influencer Kat is desperate to hold on to the place where she lived so many happy memories. Kat and Blake reluctantly join forces to renovate the dilapidated house with the understanding that Kat will try to buy Blake out at the end of the summer. The women clash as Blake's renovation plans conflict with Kat's creative vision. Meanwhile, each sister finds herself drawn into a summer romance. As the weeks pass, the two women realize the most difficult project they will face this summer is coming to grips with their shared past and learning how to become sisters. Oh, and this says it's The Parent Trap meets Flipper Flop, the ultimate vacation read. Okay, next up is Breathless by Jennifer Niven. And this says, before. With graduation on the horizon, budding writer Claudine Henry is focused on three things: college in the fall, becoming a famous author, and the ever-elusive possibility of sex. She doesn't even need to be in love. Sex is all she's looking for. Then her dad drops a bombshell. He and Claude's mom are splitting up. Suddenly, Claude's entire world feels like a lie, and the ground under her feet anything but stable. After. Claude's mom whisks them both away to a remote, mosquito-infested island off the coast of Georgia, a place where the two of them can start the painful process of mending their broken hearts. It's the last place Claude can imagine finding her footing, but then Jeremiah Crew happens. Maya is a local trail guide with a passion for photography and a past he doesn't like to talk about. He's brash and enigmatic, and even more infuriatingly, he's the only one who seems to see Claude for who she wants to be. So when Claude decides to sleep with Maya, she tells herself it's just sex, exactly what she has planned. There isn't enough time to fall in love, especially if it means putting her already broken heart at risk. Compulsively readable and impossible to forget, Jennifer Niven's luminous new novel is an insightful portrait of a young woman determined to write her own next chapter. Sex, resilience, mosquito bites, and all. Next up is My Calamity Jane by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. This says, welcome to 1876, and a rootin' tootin' American bursting with gunslingers, outlaws, and garrote. Jane, a genuine heroine. Calamity's her name, and Guru hunting's her game. When she's not starring in Wild Bill's traveling show, that is, she reckons that if a girl wants to be a legend, she should just go ahead and be one. Frank, wolf whistle. Frank, the Pistol Prince Butler, is the Wild West #1 bachelor. He's also the best sharpshooter on both sides of the Mississippi, but he's about to meet his match. Annie, get your gun. Annie Oakley, yep, that Annie, is looking for a job, not a romance, but she can't deny there's something about Frank she likes, really likes. Still, she's pretty sure that anything he can do, she can do better. A hairy situation. After a guru hunt goes south and Jane finds a suspicious-like bite on her arm, she turns tail for Deadwood, where there's been talk of a guru cure. But things ain't always what they seem, meaning the gang better hightail it after her before they're a day late and a Jane short. I love the Lady Janie's books, so I'm excited to have that. Okay, next up is To Be a Cat by Matt Haig. This says, Barney Willow wishes he were a cat. When you're a cat, Barney guesses, no one makes you walk the dog in the rain on your birthday. When you're a cat, he thinks, bullies like Gavin Needle don't put pins on your seat in geography class. When you're a cat, he figures, the evil Miss Wimpier can't make it her mission to cut you down like a weed. And when you're a cat, he hopes, you don't have to wonder why your dad disappeared one day and never came back. So what would happen if Barney Willow actually got his wish, you ask? Well, that's another story. Okay. All right, let me move these books up here. And we will move on to this stack. Okay, first up is A Good Marriage by Kimberly McCreet. And this says, with a new job at one of New York's elite law firms and her brilliant devoted husband Sam, Lizzie Katakis has everything she'd ever wanted. And then suddenly it all fell apart. No, that's a lie. It wasn't sudden, was it? Long ago, the cracks in Lizzie's marriage had started to show. She was just good at averting her eyes. The last thing she needs is to get involved in a murder case. But her old friend Zach is desperate. His wife Amanda has been found dead at the bottom of the stairs in their Brooklyn brownstone, and Zach's the primary suspect. As Lizzie is drawn into the dark heart of the idyllic park slope, she learns that Zach and Amanda weren't what they seemed, and that their friends, a close-knit group of fellow parents at the exclusive Brooklyn Country Day School, may be protecting troubling secrets of their own. By the end, Lizzie must decide whether her own marriage can be saved, and ultimately, what it means to have a good marriage. Next up is He Must Like You by Danielle Young Ullman. And this says, Libby's having a rough senior year. Her older brother absconded with his college money and is bartending on a Greek island. Her dad just told her she's got to pay for college herself, and he's evicting her when she graduates so he can Airbnb her room. And a drunken hookup with her coworker Kyle has left her upset and confused. So when Perry Ackerman, a serial harasser and the most handsy customer at the Goat, where she waitresses, pushes her over the edge, she can hardly be blamed for dumping a pitcher of sangria on his head. Unfortunately, Perry is a local industry hero, the restaurant's most important patron, and Libby's mom's boss. Now Libby has to navigate the fallout of her outburst, find an apartment, and deal with her increasing anger at the guys who screwed up her life, and come to terms with her growing crush on the guy who truly gets her. As timely as it is timeless, He Must Like You is a story about consent, rage, and revenge, and the potential we all have to be better people. Next up is One Step Behind by Lauren North. And this says, a woman pushed to the breaking point by a stalker develops an obsession of her own in this shocking new novel from the acclaimed author of The Perfect Son. Jenna is a wife, a mother, a doctor. She's also the victim of a stalker. Frightening gifts are left on her doorstep. Her home is broken into, and when she leaves her house to take her children to school, he's waiting. She feels powerless, and the police are unable to help. Then her stalker is brought to the emergency room after a terrible accident, and Jenna has to treat the man who's been tormenting her for months. While he's in a coma, Jenna is desperate to understand the life of this seemingly normal man. When she finds startling images on his phone, she becomes consumed by her need for answers, and her own obsession leads her down a twisting path of destruction. Next up is The Family Next Door, the heartbreaking imprisonment of the 13 Turpin siblings and their extraordinary rescue by John Glatt. And this is nonfiction if you didn't know. This says, from New York Times best-selling true crime author John Glatt comes the devastating story of the Turpins, a seemingly normal family whose dark secrets would shock and captivate the world. On January 14th, 2018, a 17-year-old girl climbed out of the window of her Paris, California home and dialed 911 on a borrowed cell phone. Struggling to stay calm, she told the operator that she and her 12 siblings, ranging in age from 2 to 29, were being abused by their parents. When the dispatcher asked for her address, the girl hesitated. "I've never been out," she stammered. To their family, neighbors, and online friends, Louise and David Turpin presented a picture of domestic bliss, dressing their 13 children in matching outfits and buying them expensive gifts. But what police discovered when they entered the Turpin family home would eclipse the most shocking child abuse cases in history. For years, David and Louise had kept their children in increasing isolation, trapping them in a sinister world of torture, fear, and near starvation. In the first major account of the case, investigative journalist John Glatt delves into the disturbing details and recounts the bravery of the 13 siblings in the face of unimaginable horror. And I actually remember this story, and I thought this was really interesting. Next up is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, and I didn't realize it at the time, but this is the large print edition, so, but it's also like a super floppy paperback. Like, oh, it's great. This says, far beneath the surface of the earth, upon the shores of the Starless Sea, there's a labyrinthine collection of tunnels and rooms filled with stories. The entryways that lead to this sanctuary are often hidden, sometimes on forest floors, sometimes in private homes, sometimes in plain sight. But those who seek will find. Their doors have been waiting for them. Zachary Ezra Rollins is searching for his door, though he does not know it. He follows a silent siren song, an inexplicable certainty that he is meant for another place. When he discovers a mysterious book in the stacks of his campus library, he is entranced by tales of lovelorn prisoners, lost cities, and nameless acolytes. Suddenly, a turn of the page brings Zachary to a story from his own childhood, impossibly written in this book that is older than he is. A bee, a key, and a sword emblazoned on the book lead Zachary to two people who will change the course of his life. Mirabelle, a fierce pink-haired painter, and Dorian, a handsome barefoot man with shifting alliances. These strangers guide Zachary through masquerade party dances and whispered backroom stories to the headquarters of a secret society, and finally through a door conjured from paint to the place he has always yearned for. Amid twisting tunnels, Zachary falls onto an intoxicating world soaked in romance and mystery. But a battle is raging over the fate of this place, and though there are those who would willingly sacrifice everything to protect it, there are just as many intent on its destruction. As Zachary, Mirabelle, and Dorian venture deeper into the space and its histories and myths, a timeless love story unspools, casting a spell of pirates, painters, lovers, liars, and ships that sail upon a starless sea. And I've heard really good things. Okay, next up is another one that I was a little bit disappointed in, and I'm not sure how well you can see it, but it's all like dirty looking and like scuffed up looking. But this is the 150th anniversary illustrated edition of Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. And let's see if I can like show it close enough where you can you see like all the dirty stuff? And that's like all over. So I'm going to try and clean it up. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but the pages all seem fine. As far as illustrations, most of them seem to be just like at the top of chapters. But I love Little Women. Like, probably one of my favorite classics. And yeah, I think this is a really pretty edition if it were clean. Next up is A Breath Too Late by Rocky Callan. This says, hope can be found in the darkness. 17-year-old Ellie had no hope left, yet the day after she dies by suicide, she finds herself in the midst of an out-of-body experience. She is a spectator swaying between past and present, retracing the events that unfolded prior to her death. But there are gaps in her memory, broken fragments Ellie is desperate to reassemble. There's her mother, a songbird who wants to break free from her oppressive cage. The boy made of brushstrokes and goofy smiles who brought color into a gray world. Her brooding father and his sad puppy eyes and clenched fists. And Ellie's determined to find out why a piece of her was left behind. I have a feeling this is going to be a book that'll make you cry. Next up is He Started It by Samantha Downing. and I heard really good things about this. This says, Beth, Portia, and Eddie Morgan haven't all been together in years, and for very good reasons. We'll get to those later. But when their wealthy grandfather dies and leaves a cryptic final message in his wake, the siblings and their respective partners must come together for a cross-country road trip to fulfill his final wish and, more importantly, secure their inheritance. But time with your family can be tough. It is for everyone. It's even harder when you're all keeping secrets and trying to forget a memory, a missing person, an act of revenge, the man in the black truck who won't stop following your car, and especially when at least one of you is a killer and there's a body in the trunk, just to name a few reasons. But money is a powerful motivator. It is for everyone. Next is The Lucky List by Rachel Lippincott. And this says, Emily and her mom were always lucky. Every month, they'd take their lucky quarter and dominate Huckaby's heatedly competitive bingo night. But their luck ran out 3 years ago when Emily's mom succumbed to cancer, and nothing has felt right for Emily since. Now, the summer before her senior year, things are getting worse. Not only has Emily wrecked her relationship with her boyfriend, Matt, but her dad is selling the house she grew up in. And he's invited Blake, his best friend's daughter, who Emily hasn't seen in years, to help her give mom's things away. But that's when Emily finds the lucky list, her mom's senior year bucket list, buried in a box in the back of her closet. As Emily and Blake set off on a journey to accomplish each exciting, scary, even intimidating task, Emily begins to find a connection to her mom again, but she also feels a connection with Blake, one that she wasn't expecting. Suddenly, Emily must face another fear, accepting the secret part of herself she never got a chance to share with the person who knew her best. Next up, I was able to get this really cool, I think it's a library-bound edition of Odd One Out by Nick Stone. So there is no dust jacket, it's actually, this is made like this. I think that's really neat. Let's see if it has a thing for me to read though. Okay, this doesn't have anything for me to read to you, so I'm going to look it up on Goodreads. Okay, this says, from the author of Dear Martin comes this exploration of old friendships, new crushes, and the path to self-discovery. Courtney Cooper dumped again. And normally I wouldn't mind, but right now my best friend and source of solace, Jupiter Sanchez, is ignoring me to text some girl. Ray Evelyn Chin. I assume new girl would be synonymous with pariah, but Jupiter and Courtney make me feel like I'm right where I belong. I also want to kiss him and her, which is perplexing. Jupiter Charity Sanchez. The only thing worse than losing the girl you love to a boy is losing her to your boy. That means losing him too. I have to make a move. One story, 3 sides, no easy answers. Okay, next up is Father Christmas and Me by Matt Haig. This is book 3 in the Christmas series. So I have books 1 and 2. Book 1 is called A Boy Called Christmas, and book 2 is The Girl Who Saved Christmas. So let me read you about book 1. Also, there is a movie for book 1, and it's so good. For A Boy Called Christmas, it says, you're about to read the true story of Father Christmas. It's a story that proves that nothing is impossible. If you are one of those people who believe that some things are impossible, you should put this book down right away. It is most certainly not for you, because this book is full of impossible things. Are you still reading? Good. Then let us begin. A Boy Called Christmas is a tale of adventure, snow, kidnapping, elves, more snow, and an 11-year-old boy called Nicholas who isn't afraid to believe in magic. And it's so good. Okay, I'm going to put these back and then we'll work on the next stack. Okay, next up is Wellmatched by Jen DeLuca. This is book 3 in the Wellmatched series. I read book 1 and gave it 5 stars. I loved it. And so when I saw this one on Book Outlet, I had to grab it. So here's what Goodreads says about Well Met. All's fair in love and war for 2 sworn enemies who indulge in a harmless flirtation and a laugh out loud rom-com from debut author Jen DeLuca. Emily knew there would be strings attached when she relocated to the small town of Willow Creek, Maryland, for the summer to help her sister recover from an accident. But who could anticipate getting roped into volunteering for the local Renaissance fair alongside her teenage niece? Or that the irritating and inscrutable school teacher in charge of the volunteers would be so annoying that she finds it impossible to stop thinking about him. The fair is Simon's family legacy, and from the start he makes clear he doesn't have time for Emily's light-hearted approach to life, her oddball Shakespeare conspiracy theories, or her endless suggestions for new acts to shake things up. Yet on the fairgrounds, he becomes a different person, flirting freely with Emily when she's in her revealing winch's costume. But is the attraction real or just part of the characters they're portraying? This summer was only ever supposed to be a pit stop on the way to somewhere else for Emily, but soon she can't seem to shake the fantasy of establishing something more with Simon, or a permanent home of her own in Willow Creek. Okay, next up is 8 Perfect Hours by Leah Lewis. And this says, when perfect strangers, Noelle and Sam, meet by chance during a blizzard and spend one perfect evening together, they think they'll never see each other again. But fate seems to have different plans. On a snowy evening in January, 30-something Noelle Butterby is on her way back from an event at her old college when disaster strikes. With a blizzard closing off roads, she finds herself stranded, alone in her car without food, drink, or even worse, a working charger for her phone. All seems lost until handsome Sam Atwood, also trapped in a nearby car, knocks on her window and offers assistance. After 8 perfect hours together, morning arrives and the roads finally clear. The two strangers part, positive they'll never see each other again. But fate has something else in mind. As the two keep serendipitously bumping into each other, they begin to realize that perhaps there truly is no such thing as coincidence. Next up is Dark and Shallow Lies by Jenny Myers Sane. This says, La Cachette, Louisiana is the worst place to be if you have something to hide. This tiny town where 17-year-old Gray spends her summers is the self-proclaimed psychic capital of the world, and the place where Alora Pellerin, Gray's best friend, disappeared 6 months earlier. Gray can't believe that Alora vanished into thin air any more than she can believe that nobody in a town full of psychics knows what happens. But as she digs into the night Alora went missing, she begins to realize that everybody in town is hiding something. Her grandmother, Honey, her childhood crush, Hart, and even her late mother, whose secrets called a Gray from beyond the grave. When a mysterious stranger emerges from the bayou, a stormy-eyed boy with links to Alora and the town's bloody history, Gray realizes that La Cachette's past is far more present and dangerous than she'd ever understood. Suddenly, she doesn't know who she can trust in a town where secrets fester just below the surface like water rot, and where a murderer is on the loose. Nobody can be presumed innocent, and La Cachette's dark and shallow lies may just rip the town apart. Okay, this next book is actually for Xander. It is Survival Hacks, Over 200 Ways to Use Everyday Items for Wilderness Survival by Creek Stewart. I thought this is something that Xander would actually really, really enjoy. Plastic bag tool sheath, cross-country takedown bow, the fire pick, cotton fire cigar, umbrella water funnel, pop tab tensioner. Yeah, anyway, I thought this would be something he'd enjoy. Okay, next is In 5 Years by Rebecca Serlet. This one also got a little bit messed up down here, but not too bad. This says, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Danny Cohen lives her life by the numbers. Her every goal has long been mapped out and accounted for. To her mind, the unpredictable does not exist. She is nothing like her lifelong best friend, the wild, whimsical, believes in fate Bella. So when Danny is asked the proverbial question at the most important interview of her career, she has meticulously crafted answer at the ready. Later, after nailing her interview and accepting her boyfriend's marriage proposal, Danny goes to sleep knowing she is right on track to achieve her 5-year plan. But when she awakens, she's suddenly in a different apartment with a different ring on her finger and beside a very different man. Danny spends 1 hour exactly 5 years in the future before she wakes again in her own home on the brink of midnight. But it's 1 hour she cannot shake. She tries to move on by burying herself in work and striving to excel, barreling toward that 5-year goal line. But everything changes the night that she, in the most unimaginable way, comes face to face with him, the man from her long ago dream. Danny's hard-held plan begins to unravel as she is pulled faster and faster toward that fateful hour. In 5 years is an unforgettable love story, but it is not the one you're expecting. Expertly paced, finely observed, and utterly heartbreaking, this is a book readers will not be able to put down. And I've heard really good things about this one. Okay, my battery is now flashing, so let me go change that out and we will continue on. Okay, I am back. Sorry if the angle changed. Next up is As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. This is the third and final book in the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. And I have the first 2 books, so I'm glad I was able to get this last one on Book Outlet as well. This says, the case is closed. 5 years ago, a schoolgirl, Andy Bell, was murdered by Sal Singe. The police know he did it. Everyone in town knows he did it. But having grown up in the same small town that was consumed by the murder, Pippa Fitz-Amobi isn't so sure. When she chooses the case as the topic for her final year project, she starts to uncover secrets that someone in town desperately wants to stay hidden. And if the real killer is still out there, how far will they go to keep Pip from the truth? Next up is Sundial by Katarina Ward. I think this looks really, really cool. It's also very floppy. This says, you can't escape what's in your blood. All Rob wanted was a normal life. She almost got it too. A husband, 2 kids, a nice house in the suburbs. But Rob fears for her oldest daughter, Callie, who collects tiny bones and whispers to imaginary friends. Rob sees a darkness in Callie, one that reminds her too much of the family she left behind. She decides to take Callie back to her childhood home, to Sundial, deep in the Mojave Desert, and there she will have to make a terrible choice. Callie is worried about her mother. Rob has begun to look at her strangely and speaks of past secrets. Callie fears that only one of them will leave Sundial alive. The mother and daughter embark on a dark desert journey to the past in hopes of redeeming their future. Sharp as a Snake Bite, Sundial is a thrilling new novel from the internationally best-selling author of The Last House on Needless Street. I think it sounds really, really interesting. Okay, next up is One True Loves by Elise Bryant. And this is the second book in the Happily Ever Afters series, though these can be read as standalones. They're set in the same world, but it follows different characters. And our main character in the first book, she's like a little side character that kind of only plays a teeny tiny part in this book. So they're interconnected, but not enough that you have to read one before reading the other. Okay, so this one says, Lenore Bennett has always been a force. A star artist and style icon at her high school. She's a master in the subtle art of not giving a, well, you know what. But now that graduation is here, she is a little less sure. She's heading to NYU in the fall with a scarlet U for undeclared written across her chest. Her parents always remind her that black kids don't have the luxury of figuring it out as they go. They have to be 110% prepared. But it's a lot of pressure to be her ancestors' wildest dreams, while Lenore's not even sure what her dreams are yet. When her family embarks on a post-graduation Mediterranean cruise, her friend Tessa is sure Lenore's in for a whirlwind romance. But Lenore knows that doesn't happen to girls like her, and Tessa is the character from the first book. Alright, then she meets Alex Lee. After their parents bond over the Cupid Shuffle, she ends up stuck with him for the remainder of the cruise. He's a hopeless romantic and a golden boy with a 10-year plan. In short, he's irritating as hell. But as they get to know each other during the picturesque stops across Europe, Alex may be able to help Lenore find something else she's been looking for. even if she doesn't want to admit it to herself. Love. And this sounds very cute. Plus, I love the travel aspect in it. Next up is Amelia and Abridged by Ashley Schumacher. And this says, 18-year-old Amelia Griffin is obsessed with the famous Ormond Chronicles, written by the young and reclusive prodigy N.E. Inslee. They're the books that brought her and her best friend Jenna together after Amelia's father left and her family imploded. So when Amelia and Jenna get the opportunity to attend a book festival with Inslee in attendance, Amelia is ecstatic. It's the perfect way to start her last summer before college. In a heartbeat, everything goes horribly wrong. When Jenna gets a chance to meet the author and Amelia doesn't, the two have a blowout fight like they've never experienced. Before Amelia has a chance to mend things, Jenna is killed in a freak car accident. Grief-stricken and without her best friend to guide her, Amelia questions everything she had planned for the future. When a mysterious deluxe edition of the first book of the Ormond Chronicles arrives, Amelia is convinced that it somehow came from Jenna. Tracking the book to an obscure but enchanting bookstore in Michigan, Amelia is shocked to find herself face to face with the enigmatic and handsome N.E. Inslee himself, the reason for Amelia and Jenna's fight, and perhaps a clue to what Jenna wanted to tell her all along. A devastating and beautiful debut, Amelia Unabridged is about finding hope and strength within yourself and maybe, just maybe, falling in love while you do it. I have a feeling this is a book that'll make you cry. Okay, next up is Curses by Lish McBride. And I think this looks so cool. This says, a run-in with the fairy godling at her betrothal ball left Merritt Craven with more than any fairy-born noble could want. Wealth, intelligence, and the kind of beastly visage that makes children weep. Now Merritt has until her 18th birthday to break the fairy's curse, and every day she loses a little more of herself to the animal she's become, all because she picked one unsuitable boy. Tevin Dumont has nothing except a fairy gift of charm, an exceptionally handsome face, and two siblings he's trying desperately to protect. As the oldest son in a family of con artists, he's learned how to use what he has to his best advantage. He'll do anything to keep his siblings safe. So when his mother runs afoul of the Beast of Craven, Tevin doesn't think twice. He'll pay his mother's debt, even if it means taking her place. With her birthday looming, Merritt has to find a match, but she's terrified she'll make the same mistake as before. Then she meets Tevin and realizes there's no one better to protect her from an unsuitable match than the most unsuitable boy of all. Can Tevin help her break the curse, or is she doomed to be the Beast of Craven forever? It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but gender swapped, and I love it. Okay, so this next book is Count All Her Bones by April Henry. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it is actually book 2 in the Girl Stolen series, duology. I think it's just a duology. So I pulled it up on Goodreads so I could tell you about it. Girl Stolen says, 16-year-old Cheyenne Wilder is sleeping in the back of the car while her stepmom fills a prescription for antibiotics. Before Cheyenne realizes what's happening, the car is being stolen. Griffin hadn't meant to kidnap Cheyenne, and once he finds out that not only does she have pneumonia, but that she's blind, he really doesn't know what to do. When his dad finds out that Cheyenne's father is the president of a powerful corporation, everything changes. Now there's a reason to keep her. How will Cheyenne survive this nightmare? And then I have the Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. I didn't realize I was getting a paperback. I thought I was getting the hardcover, but okay. This says, in horror movies, the final girls are the ones left standing when the credits roll. They made it through the worst night of their lives. But what happens after? From chainsaws to summer camp slayers, Grady Hendrix's fast-paced and wickedly humorous thriller, The Final Girl Support Group, pays tribute to and slyly subverts our most popular horror films, movies like The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Scream. Lynette Tarkington is a real-life final girl who survived a massacre. For more than a decade, she's been meeting with 5 other final girls and their therapists in a support group for those who endured the unthinkable, working to put their lives back together. Then one woman misses a meeting and Lynette's worst fears are realized. Someone knows about the group and is determined to rip their lives apart again, piece by piece. But the thing about Final Girls is that no matter how bad the odds, how dark the night, how sharp the knife, they will never, ever give up. And I've heard kind of mixed things about this, but I'm still excited to read it. Okay, next up is The Good Girls by Claire Eliza Bartlett. And this says, the troublemaker, the overachiever, the cheer captain, the dead girl. Jefferson Lorne High contains all of the above. After the shocking murder of senior Emma Baines, 3 of her classmates are at the top of the suspect list. Claude, the notorious partier, Avery, the head cheerleader, and Gwen, the would-be valedictorian. Everyone has a label, whether they like it or not, and Emma was always known as the good girl. But appearances are never what they seem, and as long-buried secrets come to light, the clock is ticking to find Emma's killer before another good girl goes down. And this one actually had the back cover kind of bent, folded. Next up is Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins. This says, one island, beautiful, wild, and strange. Moreau Island is a desolate spot in the middle of the Pacific Ocean with a mysterious history of shipwrecks, cannibalism, and even rumors of murder. It's the perfect destination for the most adventurous traveler to escape everything except the truth. 6 visitors. 6 stunning 20-somethings are about to embark on a blissful, free-spirited journey, one filled with sun-drenched days and intoxicating nights. But as it becomes clear that the group is even more cut off from civilization than they initially thought, it starts to feel like the island itself is closing in, sending them on a dangerous spiral of discovery. Countless secrets. When one person goes missing and another turns up dead, the remaining friends wonder what dark currents lie beneath this impenetrable paradise, and who else will be swept under its secluded chaos. With its island gothic sensibility, sexy suspense, and spine-tingling reimagining of an Agatha Christie classic, Reckless Girls will wreck you. And when I was reading it, I was getting like the "and then there were none" vibes from this. Let me move some of these books up here, and then I'll go to the next couple. My stack was getting a little too high down here. Okay, next up is a book that I picked up because my friend Clint from Reads Readers, he recently read this and very much enjoyed it, and that is Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. And, oh, there are pictures and stuff in here. Well, I think it was Clint that read this. I also think maybe Kayla from Books and Lala. I think it was Kayla, actually. I can't remember if Clint read it or not now. Let's see. This says, from Jason Rukalek, Edgar Award nominated author for The Impossible Fortress, comes a wildly inventive spin on the classic horror story. A creepy and heartwarming mystery about a woman working as a nanny for a young boy with strange and disturbing secrets. Fresh out of rehab, Mallory Quinn takes a job in the affluent suburb of Springbrook, New Jersey, as a babysitter for Ted and Caroline Maxwell. She is to look after their 5-year-old son, Teddy. Mallory immediately loves this new job. She lives in the Maxwell's pool house, goes on nightly runs, and has the stability she craves. And she sincerely bonds with Teddy, a sweet, shy boy who is never without his sketchbook and pencil. His drawings are the usual fare: trees, rabbits, balloons. But one day he draws something different. A man in a forest dragging a woman's lifeless body. Okay. As the days pass, Teddy's artwork becomes more sinister, and his stick figures evolve into more complex, lifelike sketches well beyond the ability of any 5-year-old. Mallory begins to suspect these are glimpses of an unsolved murder from long ago, perhaps replayed by a supernatural force lingering in the forest behind the Maxwell's house. With the help from a handsome landscaper and an eccentric neighbor, Mallory sets out to decipher the images and save Teddy while coming to terms with the tragedy in her own past before it's too late. And then last but certainly not least, this one is way thicker than I thought it was going to be. Like, wow. Funny enough, the last page, which is sources, Ends on page 666. This is Sensational Tales of Terror, Penny Dreadfuls, compiled by Stefan Designamenowitz. I don't know how to say that last name, but this is 20 shocking sensation stories from the Victorian era, including The String of Pearls or Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street by James Malcolm Rymer, Frankenstein or The Modern Prometheus by Mary Shelley, The Diary of a Madman by Guy de Maupassant, Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson, Lost in the Pyramid or The Mummy's Curse by Louisa May Alcott, and more. This says murder, body snatching, torture, premature burial, cannibalism. Writers of the Victorian era sure knew how to spice up their fiction and tell ripping yarns. Welcome to Penny Dreadfuls, an anthology of 20 sensation stories, all first published in the 19th century. The original Penny Dreadfuls were cheaply printed, inexpensive publications written to titillate the masses with shocking thrills and lurid horrors. Over time, Penny Dreadful became a catchphrase for any story steeped in gothic horror that pushed the limits of what was acceptable in popular fiction. In the stories compiled for this volume, werewolves, ghouls, vampires, mad doctors, carnivorous highwaymen, ancient Egyptian curses, and reanimated corpses are just some of the horrors that the victims must contend with. Selections include Frankenstein or The Modern Prometheus. Mary Shelley's classic novel tells of a scientist who brings to life an unholy creature fashioned from the dead. The text reprinted is from the original 1818 edition, published before the author toned down its horrors. Interesting. The Pit and the Pendulum, the worst horror of the Spanish Inquisition, as Edgar Allan Poe imagines it, is the inescapable approach of a grisly death. The Dream Woman, the knife-brandishing woman who haunts the protagonist of Wilkie Collins' story, is only the stuff of nightmares. Or is she? The Diary of a Madman, the honorable judge of Guy de Maupassant's tale, is respectable in every regard, except his insatiable thirst for murder. The Buried Alive. The narrator of John Galot's story discovers that there are worse fates than premature burial, such as being resurrected. The String of Pearls or Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. In James Malcolm Rymer's novel, a sinister barber who shaves his customers a bit too close disposes of the evidence in Miss Lovett's savory meat pies. Mama. I thought this would be a cool addition. So these, plus all of these, are the 36 books that I got in this haul. Luckily, none of them were too terribly damaged. I'll have to be a little more careful with their delivery people when it's raining outside. Honestly, I don't even know how this happened, but have you read any of these books? Did you like them? Did you not? Comment down below and let me know. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a big thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, click that subscribe button down below. And until next time, remember to always be completely you. Bye.